first, other headlines. For the first time ever, a drug company and executives are in the hot seat because they're facing criminal charges for America's opioid epidemic.
Rochester Drug Cooperative, or RDC, is one of the nation's largest drug distributors. From 2012 to 2017, it shipped tens of millions of highly addictive oxycodone pills and fentanyl products to pharmacies that it knew were illegally dispensing narcotics.
Federal prosecutors saying Rochester Drug Cooperative, otherwise known as RDC, knowingly failed to alert the DEA about thousands of suspicious orders for opioids and amphetamines. So it slapped the company and its former CEO, along with a former compliance officer, with drug trafficking charges. RDC has admitted it made mistakes, and they're going to pay a $20 million fee, as well as allow itself to be supervised by an independent monitor and reform its controlled substances compliance program. But a different case for the former CEO, Lawrence Dowd. His lawyer says he's innocent and he plans to fight these charges. He faces a minimum of 10 years in prison if he's convicted. So joining me now to talk about this, HLN legal analyst Joey Jackson. Okay, so the company's admitting we made a mistake. Former CEO says it wasn't on my watch. So how solid is that argument?
You know, Lynn, good to be with you. I have real mixed feelings about this. I certainly think that we have to get a grapple on drugs, the distribution of drugs. We certainly don't want the scourge of drugs in society. They're affecting people in a horrific way, and I think as a result of that, there's a place for regulation and enforcement from the federal government. When you start criminalizing distributors because of sloppy compliance practices who are distributing these opioids and other forms of drugs to pharmacies, that becomes, you know, a really slippery slope. Now, the compliance officer already pled guilty. I think they're not similarly situated. A compliance officer's specific job is to make sure that every particular pharmacy, they have their paperwork right. We're distributing drugs as we're supposed to be in compliance with protocols and standards and procedures to proper doctors. You know, but even that, I think there's a place, again, for regulation, perhaps civil enforcement, perhaps getting them to get their paperwork in order so that distribution could be consistent with people who are actually needing and using the drugs. But when you go after the CEO of a company and impute knowledge on him as to drugs that are being given, right, to individual pharmacies, I think that, that's a major stretch of prosecution. Remember, this is the first time this has occurred. I get the government's interest in doing this. I think we have to be tough on crimes, but prosecuting executives for distributing pharmaceutical products that they're licensed to do, that's kind of tough.
Because it possibly could set a precedent for other drug companies. And as you point out, the former compliance officer, he pleaded guilty. Maybe he's offering some important information when it comes to regard to the former CEO. But listen to this. According to this lawsuit, of the 1.5 million orders, only 4 were flagged to be suspicious, Joey. The DEA says 2,000 should have been. So regardless of whether or not you think that it's warranted, is this a message to other drug companies? We went after them for this. We're watching you, and we'll come after you.
And that's the point, Lynn. It absolutely is. And to be clear, I think if you delve into what the prosecution's about, they're saying, hey, not only that, right, but the stuff that you mentioned in terms of, wait, there's 2,000 that should have been flagged, and there's 4, right, as we look at the demand and the increase in those 5 years between 2002 and 2017. But there are also internal emails from company personnel that said, hey, this doesn't look too good. We're shipping out a whole bunch of drugs, and we're shipping them out, and they don't have their paperwork together. We don't have doctor proper identification numbers. So there's a lot that's amiss here. I think you could clean up the paperwork. I think you could send a message that companies need to be in compliance. But when you start throwing executives in jail for 10 years, hasn't happened. He has a trial. He has his right to defend himself. I just think that, you know, it could be overkill on the part of the government. I'm sure a lot of people are screaming at the screen right now saying, what are you talking about? Drugs are killing people. We need to hold everybody accountable. But these are executives in company whose issue is to make money. Work with them. Don't wait 5 years, right? Work with them quarterly to make sure their papers are intact. If they're not, get them into compliance. But after 5 years, to do an audit to pile on and say, aha, I just think that, you know, it's government run amok. Regulate them, do what you need to do, get the drugs off the street. But prosecuting CEOs who are 75 years old who are running companies sends the message that you say, Lynn, but, you know, it's a tough aspect of government.
It's a complicated argument on how to control these drug companies. Joey Jackson, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.